For many years, people around the world watched the Owens family live their lives on a remote farm in Yorkshire. Their days were filled with hard work, family moments, animals, and the beauty of the countryside. Viewers felt like they truly knew them. The farm, the children, and especially Amanda and Clive Owen became familiar faces in many homes. But then, suddenly, everything changed. The show disappeared from television, the family became quiet, and no clear explanation was given. Fans were left confused and worried. After 3 long years of silence, Raven Owens finally chose to speak and explain why her mother divorced her father, Clive Owen, and what truly happened behind the stone walls and windy hills of their farm. When Channel 5 cancelled our Yorkshire farm without warning, it felt like a shock to everyone who followed the show. There was no final episode, no goodbye, and no proper explanation. One week the Owens family was on screen, and the next, they were gone. Viewers who had grown attached to their story felt abandoned and unsettled. The network made vague comments about future projects, but nothing concrete ever came. This sudden ending felt strange because the show had always been about honesty, openness, and everyday life. Its disappearance felt like something was being hidden. It was not just the end of a television program. It was the sudden loss of a family that had invited the world into their home for years. The Owens family had represented a simple and honest way of life. Living on Raven Seat Farm in North Yorkshire, they showed what it meant to work hard, raise children, and survive in a harsh but beautiful environment. Sheep farming is not easy, and neither is raising 9 children in a remote area with tough winters and long days. Yet Amanda and Clive seemed to handle it all with strength and teamwork. Their life felt real and comforting to watch. For many people, the show was an escape from busy modern life, a reminder of values like family, resilience, and dedication. However, behind the scenes, things were not as perfect as they seemed. While the cameras showed laughter and teamwork, emotional struggles were quietly growing. The family that looked so united on screen was facing challenges that were not shared with the public. Rumors slowly began to spread. People noticed that Amanda and Clive were no longer appearing together as often. Their warmth toward each other seemed different. Still, nothing was officially said. Their separation, when it finally happened, was kept very private. This silence only made people more curious. Amanda and Clive had been seen as the ideal rural couple. Amanda was energetic, confident, and full of life. She quickly became the heart of the show. Her strong presence, humor, and honesty made viewers feel connected to her. Clive, on the other hand, was quiet and reserved. He was not interested in fame and preferred to stay in the background. He focused on the heavy farm work and let Amanda speak for the family. This balance once worked well, but over time, it began to cause strain. Amanda carried the pressure of public attention, while Clive carried the physical and emotional weight of the farm. Slowly, this difference created distance between them. The constant filming also played a role. Having cameras around all the time meant there was little privacy. Stressful moments were captured, and personal struggles became part of entertainment. While viewers saw honesty, they did not always see the emotional cost. The pressure to appear strong and happy for the audience became exhausting. Their children were mostly kept out of focus, but they still lived under public attention. The family image became fragile, and the reality behind it was far more complex. Raven Owens, the eldest child, felt this shift deeply. From a young age, she was aware that her family was being watched. She saw things others did not. She noticed the stress in her mother's eyes and the tired silence in her father. As the oldest, she felt responsible for protecting her younger siblings. She grew up faster than most children her age. While the world saw a happy farm family, Raven saw the emotional distance slowly forming between her parents. Raven chose to focus on her education and work. She worked long hours, studied hard, and aimed to build a future for herself in veterinary science. Her love for animals came naturally from farm life. She learned early how to sacrifice and stay strong. When rumors and online gossip about her parents began to spread, she stayed quiet. She did not defend or explain anything publicly. Her silence was not because she had nothing to say, but because the truth was too painful at the time. When filming stopped, life on the farm continued, but it was no longer the same. The daily routines remained, but the family dynamic had changed. Amanda eventually moved out, leaving Clive with the younger children. To the public, it looked like a calm and mutual separation. In reality, it was the result of years of emotional strain. Without cameras to hide behind, the problems became impossible to ignore. The image of a perfect rural family slowly faded. Speculation grew quickly. People wondered if fame had caused the divorce, or if exhaustion and pressure had simply become too much. Some even suspected there was someone else involved. But Amanda and Clive never addressed these rumors. They chose silence and privacy over public explanations. This decision frustrated fans, but it also showed how deeply personal the situation was. During this time, Raven stayed mostly out of the spotlight. She shared parts of her life on social media, but very carefully. She posted about her work, her health journey, and personal achievements, but avoided speaking about family matters. Photos with family members appeared occasionally, but never told the full story. Amanda became more visible, building a new career as a speaker and influencer. Clive stayed focused on farm work and new television projects. Raven remained quiet, watching everything unfold from a distance. Despite her silence, people continued to follow Raven closely. Many had watched her grow up on television and felt connected to her. They waited patiently for her to speak, to share her truth. There was a sense that she was holding something back, something important. Her posts felt careful and controlled, leaving space for unanswered questions. Then one evening, Raven posted something unexpected. A simple story appeared with a black background and white text. It said it was time to tell everything. There were no explanations, no dramatic build-up, and no promotion. It was calm and direct. It did not feel like an attempt to gain attention. Instead, it felt like a moment of release. After years of silence, Raven was ready to speak. When Raven finally shared her truth, it was not filled with anger or blame. She did not attack either of her parents. Instead, she spoke with honesty and maturity. She explained that the divorce was not caused by one single event. It was the result of years of pressure, emotional distance, and exhaustion. Living under constant public attention while trying to raise a large family and manage a demanding farm took a heavy toll. Her parents grew apart slowly, not suddenly. Raven explained that her mother carried the emotional and public burden, while her father carried the physical and mental strain of the farm. Over time, they stopped understanding each other's struggles. Communication broke down. Love did not disappear overnight, but it changed. Eventually, staying together became more painful than separating. She also spoke about how difficult it was to grow up in the public eye. Being watched and judged made normal family problems feel much bigger. Private pain became public curiosity. She said the silence after the divorce was necessary for healing. Speaking too soon would have caused more harm than good. Raven's message was calm and thoughtful. She made it clear that both of her parents loved their children deeply and always tried their best. The divorce was not a failure, but a decision made to protect their well-being. She asked for understanding and kindness, reminding people that what they see on television is only part of the story. Her words brought closure to many fans. They finally understood that behind the beautiful landscapes and warm moments, there were real people dealing with real struggles. The Owens family was not perfect, and they never truly were. They were simply human. By speaking out, Raven did not reopen wounds. Instead, she helped them heal. She reclaimed her voice and shared her truth on her own terms. The silence that once confused the world now made sense. It was not secrecy, but survival. And with that, the story of the Owens family finally felt complete. She was not trying to create drama or attract attention for the wrong reasons. What Raven shared was simply her truth. For the first time in many years, the story belonged to her, and she chose to tell it in her own way and at her own pace. This was not the beginning of conflict or a public fight. It was not an attempt to turn her life into shocking headlines or painful debates. Instead, it marked the start of her healing. The long silence that had surrounded her for years finally lifted, and in its place stood one clear and powerful message. It was time to tell everything. Raven Owen was ready to speak, and people everywhere were listening. Raven's story was never about loud arguments, dramatic scandals, or moments that could easily be turned into sensational news. Her experience unfolded quietly, in a way that was harder to explain but deeply emotional. There were no affairs, no explosive accusations, and no moments of chaos that shattered the calm countryside. The breakdown of her parents' marriage happened slowly and silently. It was not something people could easily see, but it was something that could be felt. It lived in the pauses between conversations, in the way smiles faded faster than before, and in the empty space where warmth used to exist. Amanda had always been the driving force of the family. To the public, she was the strong shepherdess, the loving mother, and the confident woman who held everything together. She was the face people recognized, the energy that filled the screen. But behind closed doors, Raven saw a different side of her mother. She saw a woman who felt trapped by expectations, weighed down by the need to always perform and always be strong. Amanda had become everything everyone expected her to be, but in the process, she slowly lost touch with who she truly was. Being both a mother to many children and a public figure took a heavy toll on her. She spent years caring for others, often putting herself last, until her strength began to wear thin. Clive, on the other hand, was very different. He valued tradition, routine, and the quiet life of the farm. He never sought attention or recognition. The fame that came with the show was something he tolerated rather than embraced. His love was shown through work, consistency, and presence rather than words. He wanted to protect the simple life he had known long before cameras entered their world. His resistance to fame was not rooted in anger or jealousy. It came from a deep desire to preserve what felt real and familiar to him. Over time, however, these differences between Amanda and Clive became more than just opposite traits. They turned into a growing distance that neither of them knew how to cross. Inside their home, tension did not appear through shouting or arguments. Instead, it grew through silence. Conversations became shorter. Shared moments became fewer. The connection that once felt natural slowly weakened. They were still living under the same roof, still raising children together, but emotionally they were moving in different directions. There was no single moment when everything broke. It was a slow realization that something important had changed, and neither of them knew how to bring it back. Raven noticed everything. She watched her mother become quieter and more withdrawn, carrying thoughts she never spoke out loud. The woman who once seemed full of energy and purpose appeared tired and distant. At the same time, Raven saw her father become more inward, focused on his work and his own unspoken sadness. Both of her parents were still there, still trying, but the warmth between them was fading. Raven felt helpless. She was too young to fix anything, yet old enough to understand that something precious was slipping away. When Amanda finally decided to leave, it was not driven by anger, bitterness, or a desire to hurt anyone. It was an act of survival. She needed space. She needed to breathe again. After years of giving everything to her family and the life they shared, she had lost her sense of self. She was no longer just a mother or a public figure. She was a woman who needed to remember who she was beyond the roles she played. Leaving was not about rejecting Clive. It was about choosing herself after years of feeling invisible within her own life. Raven understood this, even though it still hurt. She had seen the exhaustion in her mother's eyes long before the separation became public. She knew how desperately Amanda needed to rediscover herself. Understanding, however, did not make the situation easier. The cracks in her family could not be repaired with words alone. Raven realized that there were some things she could not fix, no matter how much she wanted to. All she could do was watch, learn, and try to make sense of it all. In time, Raven came to see her mother not as the strong television personality everyone admired, but as a woman who had reached her limit. A woman who had given everything she had until there was nothing left. After the divorce, many people expected Amanda to fall apart publicly. They waited for emotional interviews or dramatic moments. Instead, Amanda quietly rebuilt her life. She moved forward step by step, finding independence and exploring parts of herself that had long been ignored. She began writing, speaking, and connecting with the world in new ways. Critics were quick to judge her. Some accused her of chasing attention or abandoning the life she once seemed devoted to. They questioned her choices and doubted her intentions. What they did not see was the full picture. They did not see the years of sacrifice or the emotional cost of living up to an image that was never entirely real. Raven saw all of this clearly. While she did not always agree with her mother's decisions, she understood the journey Amanda was on. For the first time, Raven saw her mother not as a perfect figure, but as a human being trying to heal. Amanda's rebuilding was not about fame or approval. It was about peace. It was about finding joy and balance after years of pressure. Raven watched her mother navigate this difficult path with quiet determination. It was not a smooth or easy journey, but it was an honest one. Seeing her mother grow and change helped Raven grow as well. It taught her that strength does not always look the same and that choosing yourself is sometimes the bravest decision of all. Clive's experience was very different. He was never a man who shared his emotions openly. While the world speculated and searched for answers, he remained silent. To many, his silence seemed cold or distant. But Raven saw something else. She saw deep, unspoken grief. Clive was not indifferent. He was heartbroken. He missed Amanda and the life they once shared. He mourned the loss quietly, unable to find the words to express his pain. Instead of speaking about his feelings, Clive focused on what he knew best. He poured himself into his work and his role as a father. His bond with Reuben grew stronger, built on shared responsibility and quiet companionship. Together, they kept the farm running, holding on to routine as a way to cope. Yet despite this closeness, there remained a distance between Clive and Raven. It was not caused by anger or resentment. It was simply the space that grief creates, a silence filled with feelings too heavy to express. Raven understood that her father was not avoiding his emotions. He was overwhelmed by them. He carried his pain inward, unsure how to release it. His silence was not a refusal to care, but a sign of how deeply he felt. Seeing this helped Raven soften her own feelings and approach him with compassion rather than frustration. When Raven finally chose to break her silence, it was not to blame anyone or reopen wounds. It was a step toward healing. Carrying unspoken pain for so long had become too heavy. Sharing her truth was a way to release the guilt, confusion, and sadness she had carried quietly for years. Her words were not meant to shock or accuse. They were meant to bring clarity. By telling her story, Raven helped people understand that her parents' marriage did not end in chaos, but in quiet realization. It faded slowly due to unmet needs and unspoken feelings. Through her honesty, Raven offered both her parents something they had not had before: understanding. She allowed their story to be seen not as a failure, but as a human experience shaped by love, loss, and change. In the end, Raven's truth was not about taking sides. It was about acknowledging pain and allowing healing to begin. By speaking out, she found peace within herself and helped others do the same. Her story reminds us that not all endings are loud and destructive. Some are quiet, painful, and necessary. And sometimes, telling the truth at the right moment can bring more healing than silence ever could.